Please give a warm welcome to our first speaker, Ken Hughes. Of technology, because of course technology is an enabler. Technology is the biggest enabler for disruption. You can't ignore that. But it is just an enabler. It is not disruption in and of itself. The thing that is driving disruption is this person. It is the consumer and the shopper of today and their demands that are driving disruption. We are getting more demanding as a consumer, and therefore our business models, everyone in this room, has to change to deliver better value. Technology allows us to do that, which is great, but it is not the enabler itself. And I think this image is a really good one for everybody to take away in the room for today, because that's you at the end. That's your business, your brand, your business model. And you can see how much you rely on your consumers and shoppers. And if they step off that plank one by one, you can see what's going to happen in your business. And it has happened to Kodak, and it has happened to Nokia, and it will happen to many people in this room, because not many businesses last for longer than 20 or 30 years, even in today's economy. So unless you keep an eye on these people and what they want and how to add value to them, you can see how irrelevant you're going to be quite quickly. To me, I really think disruption is all about reaction speed. That's all it's about. It's about having an organization that is ready, because that's all you can be. If you think that your business isn't reaction ready, then you are going to fail when disruption comes. Because you're not going to know what that disruption is. That's why we call it disruption. We don't call it predictive change. It's disruption because you don't know where it's going to come from and how it's going to affect the business. But being ready to move and ready to change is what really keeps the business going. And this is another expression I use regularly. You know, leap, grow your wings on the way down. We actually don't have time anymore to kind of prepare for everything. If you look at the successes in the world today economically, they're mostly startups, because startups have that flexibility, that adaptive nature, and they do tend to do this. They just grow their wings on the way. Whereas the old traditional models and most of the organizations that we've built and we work in are based around a very bureaucratic structure, which means that we tend to get ready first and jump then. And that doesn't work anymore. I think ultimately you need to be a bit proactive in terms of disruption from a consumer point of view. You can't really be left there as an organization hoping to react. Because really what you want to do is disruption should be something that you're doing already, not going to suffer from. People don't like, the hotel industry is suffering from the disruption from Airbnb. Transport companies are suffering from the disruption from Uber, but they didn't have to. It's up to you to keep an eye on consumer culture and what consumers want, and then react. So first thing I want to introduce you to something called the blue dot consumer. So I want you to remember these things. Do you remember you used to have these in the door of your car? They were called maps. Do you remember them? Ah, they were great fun. This was a bit of broken technology, I'll tell you that. So you had to kind of, remember now you're driving a car, so this really wasn't a great thing to be doing. So eventually you turned it up the right way, which also caused many arguments in cars over the years. Now, imagine that you want to get to here. This is Bordeaux. Now, what's the first thing you need to do to make this work? To make this map work, what do you need to know? Where you are. Because if you don't know where you are on this thing, this is completely broken. So what you do is you learn as a consumer, if you want to keep this metaphor, you learn that the world is a big, big place, and you are a small part of it. And you're going to navigate your way through this world. And that's how you grow up. You grow up with this understanding that the world is big, you're small, and you're only a small part of that world. Now, today's culture, if you keep that metaphor going, we live in a world where our consumers are the blue dot. The blue dot consumer stands in the middle, and the world is shown from their perspective. Everything is about them. They are the center. They have not grown up in a world and it being a small part of it. No, no, no. They are the world, and you have to fit in to them. The first thing is that blue dot consumers expect personalization. I was staying in a hotel last year in Bogota for a conference called the Park 101. And I went into the room, and on the table in the room, there was this. They had put my name on the water, on the beer, and they even had Googled why I was coming to Colombia and had worked out that I was going to a shopper marketing conference and put the word shopper in the little candies they gave me, and I thought, wow, that's pretty impressive. And then I ordered some room service, and the cheese had my logo in it. To be honest, that got a bit creepy, you know? I was kind of entering e-stalking territory there. I'm thinking like, okay. But I'll tell you something, the next hotel I stayed in the following week, I was a little bit pissed off that the water said Evian. And if you look at your product, your service, your brand, if you are not heavily personalizing the sales experience, the product, the after sales, every single part of that, and not doing personalization with segments, that's not personalization. I mean literally DNA personalization to the person, then you're not adding value. People demand authentic brands today. The thing about authenticity is that if you create a genuinely authentic experience, you do not have any competition. That's the point. You are different fundamentally to every other player in the industry if you have achieved authenticity. Lots of people in this room think they're authentic, but actually if you talk to your consumers, you will find you're not. I think food is interesting. If you look at these brands, I'm not too sure these brands are going to exist in 10 or 15 years' time unless they change fundamentally what they stand for. Because this is mass-produced, mass-consumed, very little value. Whereas if you look at what's happening in the street food movement all over the world, people value this in terms of food, because they get close to the producer, there's the story, there's the authenticity of the story, that's what they want. The next step up from personalization, by the way, is context. So personalization is important. It means that you know who I am. I'm the blue dot. That's great, you put my name on the water. But the next step then is to do something with that data. Every single business in this room is collecting data on your consumers every day, and we're not doing anything with it. We're not adding value with the data that we collect. And we need to start. We need to start knowing not only who our shoppers are and who our consumers are, but where they are, what they're doing, and therefore what they might need next from us. That is when you start to add significant value. And that is contextual communication. Not communication based on please buy my brand, but you need to buy my brand because this is what you're doing, this is who you are, and this is how it'll make your life better. People want experiences. We've gone away from a culture that basically was about stuff, owning stuff. You are what you own. That's over. That was the 80s, the 90s, the fast car, the Nike swoosh. No longer. The consumer today doesn't really value stuff. What they value is experiences. They want to experience things and they want to share those experiences with friends, with family, on social media. Experiential value is what every business needs to offer today. Experiential equity is the new brand equity. Stop measuring brand equity. Measure your experiential equity. What equity are you creating through an experiential channel today to consumers? Because that's what they value. And in fact, even more so, they value shareable moments. You have to be creating shareable, brand equitable moments. Because if they're shareable, it means that then they share them with friends, and on it goes, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger via social media. So shareable experiential equity is what you really should be measuring on a daily basis for your brand. And again, you remember the most important thing about experience is that they invoke an emotional response. People have an emotional response to an experience. They don't necessarily have an emotional response to a sales pitch or a product or a service showcase. And again, this is a brand ladder that I've adapted from a guy called Martin Nurmer. And it basically says level 1 is satisfaction. That's when we meet people's expectations. That's quite simple. Their expectations are here, their experience is here, they're balanced, they're satisfied. But then we go from there to, no, what we need to do is we need to give people more than they expect. We need to surpass their expectations. We need to delight them in terms of what they have. And then further up, we need to engage them with some kind of tribal sense of belonging, that they belong to the brand, they are part of the one thing, us and them, and eventually we get to empowerment. And at empowerment, they are the brand advocates. They are the ones selling our product for us. That is the ultimate utopia where you want to get to. And you want to climb your way up that ladder. The problem is many of us not only are stuck on level 1, but are stuck on level 0, not even meeting expectations. So this is a satisfied customer. We measure this all the time. Everyone in this room probably measures their satisfied customers. Good for you, but you're only measuring experiences equal to their expectations. And that's not good enough anymore. Good isn't good enough. We need to be better. We need to be delivering significantly delight and excite experience. The last thing I want to talk about before I finish is the pivot. From a disruption point of view, this is critical. You need to learn how to pivot. In basketball, there's a move called the pivot. You dribble, you dribble, you dribble, and then you stop. And you stop because something has come in your way. So take the disruption metaphor. Something has blocked you now. A competitor has done something different, new technology. You have to change. And what you have a choice now. You can pivot. You leave one foot in the ground and you can pivot. You can change direction completely, 360 degrees, but you have to keep one foot in the ground. That foot in the ground from a business point of view is everything that you've done in the last 10, 20 years to get to where you are. All the staff, all the intelligence, all the IP, everything is there. Keep that. That's good stuff. But you can't go in the direction that you want to go. So you have to learn to pivot. And that, to me, is the key for disruption. An organization that can pivot fast will succeed. An organization that can't pivot or can't do it fast enough will die. The ball will be taken from you by a competitor and rushed down the other end of the court. And that metaphor is strong and it's that simple. It's like an oil tanker. Again, if the oil tanker cannot make a quick pivot turn. So if you find yourself driving an oil tanker, what you need to do, of course, is to break that oil tanker down into small units that can pivot. The startups can pivot. They can change. In 6 months, their business is irrelevant. They change direction. Large companies tend not to be able to do that, and you need to be able to pivot if you're going to succeed. I've been Ken Hughes. Thank you very much.